What do you call a fascination of buying and playing video games to afterwards put on a shelf when you're done playing it?
A problem.
See, when you collect things, eventually after some time you'll find some oddities. Not every game or song or film that you collect is going to be a surefire hit. Those weird games that make people question why you spend money on them, and the only response you really have is... oh shit, there's nothing in the script about this. And I, unfortunately, have plenty of these. Like 12. Just 12. I got a surprising amount of PAL Region DS games due to having a lot of family overseas. And a lot of these region exclusive games I own are pretty odd. I mentioned owning Magical Michael Pang a while ago in my original video game collecting video, but 12 is on another level entirely. Simply put, it is the worst collection of minigames I have ever played on a Nintendo system. Speaking of the DS, my DS library as a whole is a complete mess. I'm happy to say I own many solid titles on the system. The legendary Starfy, Dragon Quest VI, Pokemon Black 2, Polarium, Plants vs. Zombies, but I also have some wackier additions. When you pick up lots, not every item is going to be a hitter, so when I went to a yard sale and got WarioWare Touch It and all 3 Cookin' Mamas for just $1 each, I also got Crayola Treasure Adventures and Build-A-Bear Workshop for $1 as well. James Pond's Codename Robocod is the funniest background story I have in my collection. Developed in the UK originally for the Amiga, Atari ST, and the Sega Genesis, which is the most bizarre collection of systems you would never see categorized together otherwise, the game was essentially ported to 17 platforms in total, including the Amiga CD32, the Amiga AGA, the Commodore 64, the Acorn Archimedes, MS-DOS, the Game Gear, Game Boy Advance, PlayStation 1, Master System, SNES, DS, PlayStation 2, and Nintendo Switch. And it is completely abhorrent on each and every one of those systems. Actually, I retract my prior statement. No description does the Commodore 64 version justice, which feels like you peeled your retinas out. Each of these versions were published by different publishers, 7 in total. The entire game is a play on both James Bond and RoboCop, with the music being a marimba-heavy rendition of the latter's soundtrack, and lets you play as a fish that stretches incredibly long invading Santa's workshop. So you know I had to own it. As well as the prequel on the Genesis. Actually, you know what's really stupid? Spending money to own mobile games that were free on the App Store on consoles physically. I own 4 of them. I need more. For what they're worth, they're all pretty solid alternatives to playing the mobile versions. No, not you. Cut the Rope has all 3 games in one as well, but it's also free on the App Store. Why are you playing this on a 3DS? You know what's stupider? The Goonies 2, not on the SNES, but the Famicom. I didn't even know there was a Goonies 2. There isn't. Movie and TV tie-in games are always really funny to me, especially around the PS1 to Wii period of time, because they just did not care. Gremlins? Sure. Family Guy? Make 2 of them. The first one will be fantastic, and the second one will be the most difficult thing known to mankind. Butt Ugly Martians? What the fuck is a Butt Ugly Martian? My Famicom collection is full of oddities, solely because I speak absolutely no Japanese. Whenever I come along a game in person, my reasoning follows the guidelines of the price and what is on the cover. The results? Nuts and milk. I came for the middle school sex humor, but stayed because this is actually a surprisingly fun arcade game. You collect every fruit to unlock your girlfriend who is locked in a house, and it even has a level editor, which is surprisingly in-depth for the 80s. Or the entire Wagyan Land series of games. Pretty simple platformers that end each stage with a puzzle. Unfortunately, I don't speak the language, so I just ended up choosing randomly, and it works sometimes. I own every entry on the Famicom, and even Super Wagyan Land on the Super Famicom. Or Whirlo on the Super Famicom. It's actually not a terrible platformer, all things considered, but also, the game is called Whirlo, so it had to be mentioned. I also found this PS3 dance game in a Dollar Tree's DVD section, and it took me a while to add it to my collection database because it's apparently a Spanish version released in Central or Southern America. Desktop Tower Defense was a tower defense game you could play in your browser, and honestly, for what it's worth, it's a really standard tower defense game. There isn't really anything that sticks out about this game besides the fact that it's a browser game itself. Everything has a real pencil sketch art style to it that just screams early 2000s, but now it's on the DS. But yeah, those are just a few oddities in my video game collection. Honestly, half the fun of collecting and thrifting is finding these weird atrocities. Because be honest with yourself. You just couldn't resist Family Guy the video game, could you?